One post I've seen a few times is Power Rangers in Space is overrated. Why do people think this is such a great season? If you never saw the season until later in your life, or if it's before your time, I understand maybe it doesn't hit you the same way it did for me at 7 years old. But honestly, there are a lot of reasons why this season should be considered number one. Hi guys, my name is Casey. I'm a huge fan of Power Rangers, and I just love talking about it, and I love reading all your comments. I love getting in discussions with everybody about this, and this is one that I'm sure we'll have some fun talks about. In order to have talks, I need energy. I need your help. I need to live, which means I need subscribers. You know, at first I did the whole subscriber thing as sort of a joke because I didn't think anybody was really going to get into this. And then all of a sudden people got really into it. So now I'm doing it sarcastically, but yet I really do want more subscribers. Yet I love doing this, but I do. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do about that. I'm just going to keep trying to make videos and having fun with you guys. Is that too sincere? No, that's stupid. This isn't supposed to be a history of Power Rangers in Space. This is really more of a overview, just pointing out the reasons why it was so great for its time. Before we jump into the nostalgia of the season, you can't deny that this show is significant. This was intended to be the last season of Power Rangers. Ratings had been a struggle since Zeo. The reason Saban brought back Austin St. John was because they thought maybe Jason's character would bring people back to the show. Then in Turbo things really started to tank. The brother show Big Bad Beetleborgs was actually higher in ratings at the time. I believe this had a lot to do with Jason David Frank wanting to leave the show. Before they brought in the new cast for passing the torch, it was pretty obvious JDF was taking a step back. A lot of the storylines didn't involve him, and he'd show up just in time to morph for the battle, sometimes even heading back to the racetrack while the others talked to Demetria. Honestly, you can tell the magic was gone. The stories were just kind of stale. It was the turning point that Hayam had threatened for years to the actors and actresses, saying he could get a new cast. It was the way Sentai did it, and Hayam wanted to move that direction for some time, but was afraid it would lose the audience. If you haven't heard, the cast weren't notified by anyone they were being replaced. Johnny Young Bosch found an article about auditions for Power Rangers. It's a really sad story, honestly. Nikita and Catherine talk about it on Power Rangers Playback YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description below if you want to hear the full story. As a kid, I wasn't upset by the change. The new Rangers, TJ, Cassie, Ashley, and Carlos really brought new life to Turbo. But when they went to space, it changed the Power Rangers franchise forever. Patricia J. Lee noted that it was like going from a sitcom to a motion picture. The music was actually being scored for the episodes instead of just the same canned music. The Astro Megaship set made filming efficient and more professional. All the lights in the ceiling were built in so they could adjust lighting for each scene by flipping a switch instead of having to move large lighting rigs for every single shot. Besides lights, the set itself was made in full, which means there was no limit to what they could film. Running down the hallway was possible because there were walls on all sides. If they needed a side shot of the hallway, the walls were on hinges so they could pull them out and set up the desired camera angle. This gives them the ability to not only film in a flat setup like most shows, but also film like a single shot, much like the show The Office. The uniforms the Rangers wore day to day made them look like a crew from Star Trek, but also lets their colors only stick out under their jackets. A lot more subtle and sleek look compared to what we've seen in the past. Better believe I wanted one of those jackets. I know that it upsets a lot of people, but this was the push the franchise needed to launch it into a show that would last for over 3 decades. This season saved the Power Rangers franchise, and that in itself is the reason it deserves to be the best season of all time, because if it wasn't for Power Rangers in Space, it would have been a 6-season show and died before the Y2K. TJ to me has always been one of the greatest leaders in Power Ranger history. Some might say others are more qualified, but what I think makes TJ so great is he leads by example, and he is constantly uplifting the people around him with encouragement and positive, happy attitudes. Patricia J. Lee said it was hard to get serious on set because he made you want to laugh all the time. She also stated that his eyes look like they're always smiling. Tracy Lynn Cruz, in an interview with That Hashtag Show, said he was eye candy in the costume. I think it's easy to say that Selwyn Ward just has a charm to him. He really gives off such an energy in the show, which I think is a big factor in the feel of the show, and the interactions of the cast. In Forever Red, when he says, "I replaced him," as in Tommy, I really think if they had someone not as charming as Selwyn, it might have tanked completely. People ask why can't any other color besides red be the leader? First off, Delphine, the white alien ranger, and Jen Scott, the pink Time Force ranger, were their team's leaders. But I believe TJ was the Space Ranger's leader. Andros was kind of doing his own thing most of the time in search of his sister, so it fell on TJ's shoulders a lot of the time. And he has moments where he takes his losses really hard, which gives him a lot of depth as a character. In a lot of seasons, the Zord configuration is very representative of the positions of the team. For example, let's take the Jungle Pride Megazord. The top portion of it is all Red Ranger. The two bottom legs are the other two members of the team, representing that they're the ones who help carry him to where he's going, but he's the one in charge. When looking at the Astro Megazord, it's predominantly blue with little highlights of red. I think this is very representative of the team itself. TJ overwhelmingly embodies the team and leads them, although the accents of red represent Andros' guidance in their new adventure out in space. Ashley and Cassie were two characters I think really stood their ground. One thing I liked about them is that they didn't always get along. They had arguments about different things, which was different from previous Girl Ranger duos. When Aisha replaced Trini in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I remember like 2 episodes in, Kimberly says, "You're my best friend," which is weird since she was Trini's best friend, but in this kids show they all have to be best friends and get along. But that's why I liked this group of Rangers, because they weren't always perfect. Carlos gets a lot of flack from people, but he had some good character episodes and is a positive member of the team. Maybe doesn't get as much character development as the rest, but I like Carlos. But statistics and TV ratings aren't everything. The show itself has to stand on its own, and believe me, it definitely does. Most Ranger fans set the maturity bar at Power Rangers RPM. Amazing season and the most likely contender to In Space, but it's important to see the maturity in Power Rangers in Space. Power Rangers Turbo left off with Chase into Space Part 2, November 24th, 1997. This was the first time we ended the season with the Power Rangers base being destroyed, and they have no powers. Also, their clothes are ripped apart. They lost a really important battle. The Rangers are at their lowest point, and then the show says, "To be continued, next season, Power Rangers in Space." The show had never left on a cliffhanger like this before. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1 ended with Zach getting a kiss from Angela. That was the big ending to the season. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 2 ended with Billy asking a girl out on a date to the movies. The girl makes a statue of a gold ranger with Billy's face, and Bulk and Skull say he could never be a ranger, that's ridiculous. Season 3 ends with the Power Rangers being turned into kids, but they call on the Alien Rangers to come help, and during the rest of the season they acquire the Zeo crystals. And then it flows right into Power Rangers Zeo. The Turbo movie does the same, just moves from one Power Ranger suit to the next. So you have to realize that this cliffhanger was significant for kids who waited for 3 months until Power Rangers in Space premiered February 6, 1998. After all that time waiting, kids watched the first episode, which once again showed a completely new and mature Power Rangers. The beginning starts with the United Alliance of Evil. We had Rita, Zed, the Machine Empire, and Divatox on screen all together for the first time. It was like an evil Avengers moment, even if they were quirky characters. To see this as a kid was mind-blowing and honestly a real treat after months of waiting, and from this point it is so clever in the way it keeps the audience attentive, while revealing very little. Astronema's entrance is heart-stopping for a kid. Now, besides Astronema being obviously beautiful and wearing a pretty typical 90s sexy villain getup, it's not just her beauty that makes her a great character. The first is that she is not a comical villain. All the villains up to this point in Power Rangers started or transitioned into being lovable idiots. Goldar was pretty scary, but eventually he and Rita were dressed as maids cleaning Bulk and Skull's house. Lord Zed was so scary parents were writing letters telling the network to soften him up, and he eventually was driving in an RV on the moon with Rita with no real plan for his future. The Machine Empire definitely developed a bit of a campy feel, and by the time they got to Divatox, the cat was out of the bag. Honestly, she probably is the funniest villain to date. Her and her minions have some great comedic moments. Astronema was a trained assassin, and when the lightning bolt catches her arm, she doesn't scream or yell, she just stares them down. She maintains this composure very well. Melody Perkins has said she was new to acting and had no idea what she was doing, but honestly, she nailed this part from the start. The quiet, beautiful girl who would explode in anger and yell at her henchmen is very true of young actresses or pop stars with too much fame or pressure. But she never broke the fourth wall and said a cheesy catchphrase. She never started screaming and walked away flailing her arms. She was well grounded, and part of that might have to do with Ecliptor being her father figure. She was the one in charge, but she did respect someone else. Ecliptor wasn't a Rito Revolto character either. He was a warrior who at the end of the day wanted to sleep at night knowing he was honorable. He also cared for Astronema. He would never betray her, which is a trait that really hasn't been seen in villains yet. Most of them are quick to jump ship like Elgar did. The last thing about Astronema that makes her so different is that she is human. Yes, Rita and Divatox are human, but they are cartoon characters with big elaborate hats or face masks. Astronema was a woman. She was young, and even when she was doing something terrible, you kind of felt for her. I was in love with this character, even though I should be rooting for the Power Rangers. When the Red Ranger is revealed, it is an amazing shot because, again, kids have been waiting for 3 months to see what happened, and they gave them a snippet which was so perfect because it gave you a checkmark of, okay, you got to see a Power Ranger suit, but they don't reveal his face or identity. This has never happened in a pilot episode. The 4 previous Turbo Rangers start their adventure very differently than in the past. Day of the Dumpster is so quick, they pull the Rangers in, and here are your powers, here you go. They go out and fight putties, bam, it's done. This had them being pulled into a mysterious ship. They walked around much like a kid's version of Alien, searching for anyone. It was very thrilling for a kid. Once they encountered the Red Ranger, once again his identity is kept secret, and the 4 Turbo Rangers never morph into Space Rangers. Instead, they leave you on another cliffhanger. The next episode aired a week later, giving kids more anticipation for what could happen. The next episode, they finally give kids what they want, revealing the identity of Andros. The Rangers morph and even get to use the Astro Megazord. I know there are people who don't like In Space's arsenal, but I think this was brilliant. So far, there have only been a handful of standalone Zords that aren't a combination of 5 individual Zords. Mostly, they have been a single character. Tommy's Green Dragon Zord, White Tiger Zord, Zeo Red Battlizer. Okay, so basically all of Tommy's Zords. But what's unique about this Zord is that it is the entire team's Zord, symbolizing a much more unified group. I kind of relate this to the Beatles. All their album covers were one picture of all of them together until things were going south and they started to hate each other. And then you got covers of 4 individual photos of each member. Although not intended to show they weren't as tight as they once were, it was a pretty honest representation of their current relationships as a group. So to me, the Astro Megazord was a really great symbol of how strong a team they are. The next episode gives us our typical Rangers settling into being Rangers. They show Andros learning about Earth. They fight Ecliptor for the first time, but at the end of the episode, Astronema goes to New York and brainwashes the 5 Ninja Turtles. These were the suits from Ninja Turtles: The Next Mutation. There are mixed opinions on this crossover. Even Christopher Kamen Lee expresses how much he disliked it. At this point in time, Power Rangers only had one live-action crossover, which was the Alien Rangers teaming up with Zeo. The only non-Ranger team-ups were a comic book of Turbo and Beetleborgs and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers with Masked Rider. Now, Masked Rider and the Ninja Turtles team-ups were both used for one thing, to boost ratings for the neighbor show. But the difference in this situation is that the kids didn't know who Masked Rider was. Honestly, it wasn't exciting. This was the first crossover in Power Rangers history that people could get excited about because we knew who the Ninja Turtles were. Even though at this point in the 90s, the 3 major motion pictures of the Ninja Turtles were kind of old news, they had actually planned on a 4th movie, but it stalled. Saban Entertainment took the opportunity to get the rights to turn that movie's plot into a series, so all the Venus haters out there should be aware. Had the movie gone through, Venus wouldn't have been a forgotten character in the franchise, but most likely a permanent character for years to come. Again, this episode is highly criticized, but the reasons people list are understandable. VR Troopers and Beetleborgs were all filmed very close to Power Rangers set, but Ninja Turtles was filmed in Canada. They shipped the suits to LA, which is why they didn't have the original suit actors from The Next Mutation. They were different production companies, which is why Saban just used their own voice actors to play the Ninja Turtles. Nowadays, it would be easy for the voice actors in Canada to record their lines and email it over, but in 1998, that wasn't as readily available. They also only had access to the suits for 3 days of filming, so if you think it was a rushed job, it kind of had to be. They had to ship the suits back so that the Ninja Turtles show didn't get behind on their filming schedule. Honestly, I am amazed Saban Entertainment took this much trouble to make this happen. They have had other opportunities to do things like this and they just didn't bother. So this episode may be easy to make fun of, but it's really groundbreaking for Power Rangers. By episode 5, we see Andros searching for his sister after finding an energy reading on his abandoned planet KO-35. This season already has given us some great long-running plots. In the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers season, all we really had episode to episode was Tommy and Kimberly's relationship, Zack chasing Angela. So to have a storyline where someone is looking for their sister who was abducted as a child is really dark and mature compared to what we've seen so far on Power Rangers. A lot of other seasons develop conflict really close to the end of their finale. This starts the series with a really intense tone, helping the audience connect with Andros, hoping he finds his sister. Now, episode 9 is one I have to bring up, entitled The Craterite Invasion. As a kid, this episode legitimately scared me. It was sort of like a horror movie for an episode. We've had Halloween episodes, but this was more serious. A kid walks around seeing his family has been abducted by these creatures. It was something I had never seen Power Rangers do before, and at this time it was a big departure from the campy tones from the seasons prior. The season continues with some amazing characters. Darkonda being a villain who really has no loyalty to anyone is intriguing. There have been some villains who try to overthrow other villains, but no one, to my knowledge, is as intelligent as Darkonda. It was also new to see Ecliptor not trusting Darkonda, showing a struggle between villains at a level we haven't seen before. Finding out he was the one who abducted Andros' sister, Karone, was also another great advancement in this season's storyline. On episode 11, we see the return of the Phantom Ranger. We didn't see the return of former season Rangers very often, so this was cool to see, and also to see Cassie's relationship with the Phantom Ranger. She really has one of the saddest storylines, being in love with this mysterious character, but they could never be together. Maybe they'll change that in the comics. We also get a new Zord, the Delta Megazord, which once again is killer. Seriously, one of the coolest Zords of all time in my opinion. It is sleek, black, and has Gatling guns as hands. Seriously, such a cool Zord. And the fact that Andros can control it from the Astro Megazord is great because the team stays together. Andros finds out Darkonda took his sister, and in episode 17 we get the Mega Voyager. Although these are 5 different Zords that combine, they are rarely used separately. Episode 18 is True Blue to the Rescue, which marks our 3rd cameo/crossover that we've already had in this season, and we're not even halfway through. Justin returns to save the Rangers as the Blue Turbo Ranger. This again was mind-blowing because we had never had a former Ranger return and morph in an episode besides the Alien Rangers at the end of Zeo. We also get Lightning Cruiser and Storm Blaster involved too. Justin getting his powers back is actually a very easily explained topic. I have a video that talks about it, so go check that out if you haven't already. 2 episodes later we get introduced to Zane, the Silver Ranger. This was the first Silver Ranger ever. We have had a green 6 Ranger, gold, which looked more like a Black Ranger with a shield, but this was the first shiny Silver Ranger. And it was a little suspenseful finding out that he was dying and the Rangers are hopelessly fighting a swarm of monsters as Zane makes a really killer entrance. The entrances on this show are amazing. Episode 23, we see a whole new side to Astronema. She falls in love with Zane very hard, and we get to see her looking like a normal teenager for the first time, which is surprising because she looks very different. This episode showed a lot of human-like qualities in her. We never saw Divatox or Rita ever be regular humans. This was a whole new side of a villain in the show. Episode 25, Always a Chance. Wait, what? Another cameo by a former Ranger? Seriously, do you not realize how insane this show was for a kid? Not only bringing back Adam, but having him morph into the original Black Ranger again was something I never thought I'd see. This episode may seem insignificant to people who've seen Forever Red or The Legendary Battle, But so far, we'd had Jason return, but he never morphed into the Red Ranger. Those powers were lost, so the fact that we got a minute of the original Black Ranger suit next to the current season was incredible. So let's take an intermission. We are halfway through the series. We've had the Ninja Turtles, Phantom Ranger, Blue Turbo, and the Mighty Morphin Black Ranger all appear on the show, as well as seeing the first Silver Ranger. So this already has mega points for just having so much packed into it. But honestly, this is where the show gets insanely good. The next episode starts out with an M. Night Shyamalan level twist, at least to a kid. We find out that Astronema is Karone, Andros' long-lost sister. The next few episodes, Astronema defects and goes to the Power Rangers. When they believe they've located Zordon, Karone tries to help, but ultimately gets captured. And just like Han and Luke, Andros and Zane sneak into the villain's ship, taking Quantatron suits to save Karone. But they find she is being controlled with some sort of computer chip or robotics. This was gut-wrenching because a lot of kids were so excited she defected. We thought she was in the clear, but then she gets sucked back in, and now she loses her humanity, making her a purely evil villain. As a kid, I honestly was so mad at this storyline at the time. I really liked Karone, and when they made it seem like she had joined the Rangers, and the uniform definitely made me think we'd have the first Purple Ranger, we got her ripped away from us. This had never happened in the show before. Tommy and Kat were both evil but became good. The random episodes someone was turned into a brat or brainwashed were resolved by the end of the episode. This made it feel like we may never get Karone back. And if that story isn't sad enough, the next episode introduces us to, by far, one of the greatest villains in Power Ranger history, the Psycho Rangers. Now, this miniseries was absolutely gut-wrenching to watch as a kid. The only other time the Power Rangers had something this close to a thriller was the 5-part Green with Evil series. They released these episodes on VHS. Each episode was a different movie you had to purchase, but the Psycho Rangers series was edited down to a continuous movie. I saw it in the store and bought it as a kid. I watched that over and over. Why is this important, you might ask? A lot of you probably own a movie on DVD, but that movie is on Netflix or Disney+. Most people just stream it because it's easier. That is one reason why I think the Psycho Rangers series lives on so well. It was so easy to watch all of it from start to finish. In the past, there were Ranger doppelgangers, which I want to do a whole video on, but none of them were as powerful as the Rangers. Evil Rangers like Tommy were outnumbered, but this group of Psycho Rangers really crushed them the first episode. That first episode aired, and I remember being in shock, like, how in the world could they ever defeat them? Even by the end, the Rangers never really crushed them. They just barely defeated them with some clever tactics. It's such an exhilarating miniseries. Only 2 episodes after that, we are introduced to the first ever Battlizer. This was never seen in Power Rangers before. Nowadays, you kind of expect some sort of power-up mode for the Red Ranger or the Rangers in general. But this was another twist that no one saw coming because it had never been done. The next episode, we see the Psycho Rangers again, with a machine that can transform data into matter. Once again, the Rangers don't destroy them easily, they simply get them back into the machine to turn them into cards, which sets up their team-up in Lost Galaxy so nicely. The next episode, we see the Delta Megazord be destroyed, which has been seen before, but it was still hard to watch as a kid. The last episode before the 2-part finale is a little strange. It has a sinister Humvee attacking the Rangers and teleporting them to a desolate wasteland. The one thing I remember about this was I'm pretty sure this is one of the only episodes so far that the Rangers are being attacked at night. That may seem meaningless, but it definitely gives it more of a cinematic feel. When everything is filmed in the middle of the day, happy and bright, it gives off a certain tone. But we also lose the Mega Voyager. Now, like I just stated, yes, we've lost Megazords, but not 2 episodes in a row. Then, of course, this leads to what a lot of people consider to be the greatest finale in Power Rangers history. Once again, it really is that Avengers giddy feeling when we see Zed, Rita, Divatox, the Machine Empire all attacking as Astronema takes over as the head of the evil alliance. We see the Alien Rangers for the first time since Zeo. The Gold Zeo Ranger, the Blue Centurion, and the Phantom Ranger are all defending planets in the universe. The Rangers make a stand alongside the citizens of Angel Grove. Bulk and Skull finally get to see the identities of the Power Rangers. They have been pushing for that since Season 2, and of course we get Zordon's end. Realize that this aired November 21st, 1998. Power Rangers fans have been seeing Zordon since August of 1993. 5 years that kids have known him, and he sacrificed himself to save the universe. I don't know how any season can top that ending. This season really continued to influence Power Rangers. Lost Galaxy's Japanese counterpart was not a space-themed season, but In Space did so well they wanted to keep it going. The Astro Megaship stayed as a main set on their filming, and the 2-part team-up with the Space Rangers was amazing. The first episode to the 10th Power on its own was one of the best team-ups, but the second episode with the departure of Kendricks was heart-wrenching. And seeing Karone return to become a Power Ranger, honestly, how can people say In Space is overrated? This season was so groundbreaking. Personally, I love every season of Power Rangers because they're all kind of unique and have their own thing. I understand that In Space might not be your thing, and that's okay, but I do think that it has a lot to offer, and I think that it definitely does deserve to be up there at the top. And when people say this is overrated, I think they're wrong. I hope this gives you a little insight as to why it was so great at the time and why I have such a huge love for this season of Power Rangers. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.